Alrighty, so this, I got a big long email from this person who asked me not to use their name, so I'm going to try not to. But the email started out, there was a question, and I'll address that real quick. And then this person had a whole litany of things that they see day to day in other people's riding. I'm assuming this must be at some kind of a training barn or an equestrian barn or something like that, and just wanted me to just throw out some deals about that. So anyway, the original question was about a Salinas bit and the horse that this person has, when pressured, just runs backwards, gets scared and runs backwards. And did I think it had anything to do with the bit or not? Yada yada yada. No, probably not. This is a fixer-upper horse. It's fixing some other owner's mistake. So I don't know, that person jerked it backwards or chased it backwards or whatever the case may be. I can't fix that over an email. But the question about the Salinas mouthpiece was, do some horses not like it? And the person pointed out something real particular about a Salinas mouthpiece. So I'll show it to you. But that's a Salinas mouthpiece on a 7 cheek. That's a Salinas mouthpiece on a cavalry cheek. That's a Salinas mouthpiece on, I don't know what you call that cheek. And that's a Salinas mouthpiece on a Fresno cheek. So I've got 4 of them, and they're all different. You notice that each one of the width of the hood on all these is different, or the width of the mouth on there, the size of the roller. If you could hold them in your hand, you feel that they've all got different weights and this and that. So obviously Salinas is a good bit, like I said, because I've got 4 of them, but I've got 4 that are all different. Now the question is because that roller always sits on the tongue in a Salinas mouthpiece, does it become irritating to a horse? Whereas in some of these other bits, they've got a solid bar sitting on their mouth or some tongue relief, variety of things, and they can get away from that roller. Yes, I think so. I think that some horses are irritated by Salinas mouthpieces because of that very reason. They can't get away from that roller. They always have to have it. Or it's always going to be there sitting flat on their tongue. For that reason, generally speaking, I find that horses with thinner tongues don't get along with Salinas mouthpieces as well, because I feel like their tongue gets a little bruised. With that said, one of the thinnest tongue horses I've ever had rode great in this one. This was his bit, and this is not only, it sits down a little lower even than some of these Salinas ones, and it's heavier than the rest of them. So there goes my theory on that. But it seems to me that some of them get irritated by it. On the other hand, some of them really like it. The great thing about a Salinas is no matter what the horse rides in, you can ride them in this. And they may not love it, but they'll get along with it. They'll like it. They'll like it enough, and they'll play that roller and enjoy it. So that was the first part. So now let's get to all the questions here. And some of these I may not be very good at answering because from the sounds of it, this is coming from like a public trainer's barn that then does lessons and has boarders and stuff like that. And I'm not really familiar with that world, so I'll try it. So, people riding tacky tack saddle pads. I don't know what tacky tack saddle pads mean. I don't know if that means, and I don't speak millennial either, so I don't know if that means tacky, like crappy tack store saddle pads, or what that means. But what I can tell you is, yeah, pay the money for a pad. Like, it's worth it. Natural, some kind of natural fiber. There are times and places where one could maybe argue the use of neoprene or the use of some unnatural fibers or unnatural stuff, but like 99.9% of the time for any application, yeah, just go with wool. Wool's better than everything else. And yeah, a really good wool felt pad is expensive. I've got a 5-star that I actually didn't buy, but I do know that the sticker price on that pad was like 300 and some bucks, and that was 10 years ago. And I'm still using it. You know, there's the other thing about it too, is that buy once, cry once. So yes, invest in good pads. Diamond wool are great pads, and they're not terribly expensive, but they last a long time. They work really good. I've got a pile of Casazias that I bought when we were first married, and so they're like almost 20 years old, and I just use them and use them and use them and use them. Yes, they're expensive, but I'm still using them. There's one hanging on the porch there that's been sitting out for a month in the rain and the sun, and it's fine. I go and use it. So yeah, invest in good saddle pads. Too much pad. That is something that I also see quite a bit. People confuse, because we call them pads, we really should come up with something better to call them, but it's been this long, that's what we still call them. But people, don't say that, Brett. People confuse pad with cushioning, and so they think they're being good to their horse by putting more cushioning between themselves and the saddle. That's not the pad's job. The pad's job is to do two things. One is to protect your saddle from the horse. Horse sweat is caustic, it will rot things. That's why we use wool pads, because that's the one thing that, for whatever reason, is salt proof, or at least horse sweat proof. But that's the one reason, is to protect our saddle from the pad, and the other reason is to fill in the relief from where our saddle doesn't exactly fit perfectly. I can't show with my hands and have that make any sense, but you know, a saddle doesn't sit directly on a horse and cover 100% of the horse with the saddle tree. There's spots where there's hollownesses, there's spots where there's a little more pressure, there's this or that. The pad's job is to fill in that relief so that you get more weight distribution through the tree onto their back. So putting more pad on there has actually been proven time and time and time again that it centralizes the hot spots, it centralizes the places where it's pinching. It doesn't do as good a job as filling in the relief, and it does a better job of making the tight spots tighter. So it's been proven time and time and time again that too much pad actually hurts your horse's back. So I always use the very thinnest amount of pad I can possibly use. I mostly ride babies, and I don't ride them for very long, and so I just use a doubled over Navajo blanket. Also extremely expensive, but worth the money. I've got one I stole from Mark Hawkinsmith that was old when he stole it. I stole it 20 years ago, and I still use it. Sorry, Mark. Anyhow, yeah, with those pads, the least amount you can get away with is best. And then the other reason for that is the less pad you have on there, the closer you are to your horse, the more your horse can feel you, the more you can feel your horse, increases the communication level. And then the third reason is too much pad is dangerous, because your saddle isn't sitting properly on your horse because there's all this padding, and it will cause your saddle to slip. Ty Murray's got a really funny story about that, if you guys ever read his memoir. Okay, flex trees. So flex trees, treeless saddles, you know, when these first came out, I mean, maybe they'd been out longer than that, but when I first heard about these, I was, you know, early teenager, and it just wasn't something that made sense to me then, and it isn't something that makes sense to me now. The idea of having that tree flex with the horse's back and the horse's movement, if you look at it from a platonic point of view and reason it out, you're going to pinch that horse more often than if that tree is rigid, then the horse moves under it, and if there is a spot where that horse moves, that pinches, they'll figure out a way to not do that. So the flex trees and the treeless saddles, they just don't make any sense. The treeless saddles that were all the rage, maybe still are all the rage, with the barrel racers a few years ago, those are complete pieces of junk. They hurt horses' backs. That's just like riding bareback. If you're going to do that, just ride bareback, because that hurts horses' backs too. That's why we won the war. But yeah, those flex trees and stuff, they just don't make sense. They just don't work very good. The this is my little tirade that I took off of this other deal. The other thing is the ultralight saddles that the barrel racers want to use, and then the trail riders sometimes, I guess, want to use. We're seeing this barrel racer idea of this light saddle because less weight makes you go faster, blah, 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 blah. If I entered a barrel race, which would be hilarious, but if I entered a barrel race and I got beat by somebody with a 17-pound saddle and I was riding in my 35-pound ranch saddle, I did not get beat because my saddle's heavier. I got beat because my horse is slower and I don't know how to barrel race. That would be why I got beat. The idea of lightening everything up to make your horse faster, like, think about it. Like, it's not gonna happen. Maybe in an endurance race, you know, because those people are packing water bottles and hankies and lawnmowers and, like, I don't know, they pack all kinds of crap. And you know, the U.S. Cavalry did the same thing, tried to lighten it up for the endurance sake. All right, you can probably talk me into it. The trail rider end of it, I'm not buying it. Take your average trail rider, the horse doesn't get rode very much, the rider doesn't ride very much. So making that saddle real light makes the horse take more of the impact of the rider's weight. A heavy leather saddle with a good heavy tree in it is going to soak up some of that impact. So I actually think you're doing your horse harm by one of those ultralight saddles in every form. I do know some outfitters that use the Cordura saddles, and the whole reason for it is because you don't have to take care of them. You can leave them laying in the snow, you can put a bloody elk over the top of them, you can blah, blah. You don't have to oil them, you don't have to, and they're cheap, so they just throw them away and get another one. Okay, well, that's practical. I still don't think it's good for the horse. Bad saddle fit. Yeah, so we've actually done some videos about saddle fit with Jax Butler. She did a really good job of explaining the difference between good saddle fit and bad saddle fit. But yeah, if your saddle doesn't fit right, get another one. Like, or you don't have, it doesn't cost you anything to own a saddle. Put it in the living room and sit on it while you're watching TV and get something that fits. Bad saddle fits, you're just asking for problems there. You know, that's like asking me to go to work, but you're not going to let me wear the right size boots, whether they're too big or they're too small. Well, I'm not going to get as much work done, and I'm going to get cranky, and my feet are going to get hurt, and I'm going to quit. So, bad saddle fit. Breast collars. This person was talking about breast collars that are too tight. Well, I guess I forgot about that part. It wasn't just saddle fit. This person was also talking about putting the saddle up too far on the horse's withers so that the shoulder blades are rubbing under the tree, and then consequently, and then not getting your pads set right, and then consequently cinching them down with the breast collar to keep them on. Yeah, that's just bad riding. That's just bad horsemanship. Breast collars in general, you've got two camps. You've got guys like me that go, I don't need it. Dang near every time I've ever used one, I got in some kind of wreck on account of it. So I don't use a breast collar. I've never needed one. Really, the only time I can see the usefulness in a breast collar is if you were consistently roping heavy stock. Like if you're team roping a lot, of course they're not very heavy, but or if you're like doctoring a bunch of yearlings or anything like that. And it's really not to keep the saddle on, it's just to give the horse some more stuff to push in to take that impact. That's the only use I really see in a breast collar. And then on the other side of that, there's guys like Bobby Ingersoll, who is, you know, far more experienced and far more the horseman than I am. He says always, always, always riding a breast collar. All right, well, the reason he says that is because the breast collar, the other good thing a breast collar can do is keep your saddle from slipping. Bobby's one of those guys that doesn't like to ride a very tight cinch. I disagree with the whole premise. I say put a tight cinch on, don't worry about the breast collar. He says ride a loose cinch, ride the breast collar to keep it on. So that's America, we can have opinions. But really that's all a breast collar is going to do for you. America. That's all a breast collar really does for you is is keep your saddle from sliding around. And a lot of people go, well, I ride in the back country and steep hills and I don't want my saddle sliding back. Well, that means your saddle doesn't fit very good. I've ridden in the backest country and the steepest hills too, and in a 5/8 single rig. Sometimes, if it fits the horse I'm riding. If it doesn't, I ride something else. But you know, if your saddle doesn't fit, then that breast collar is going to keep your saddle from sliding back when you're going uphill. If your saddle does fit, you don't need that. If you're an out of shape weekend rider and you know you need that breast collar to keep your saddle on your horse when you crawl up there because your saddle wants to slide, I'd say lose weight. That's what I would recommend. Or get a horse with taller withers. Yeah, Hurdy's withers more. And I was actually thinking about that question as I was doing something just a minute ago, and you know, maybe you're not willing to lose weight for the sake of your horse. I can actually understand that. If someone came to me and said, Brett, it's scientifically proven that chewing Copenhagen hurts your horse's hooves, I'd go, well, you're gonna have to toughen up because I ain't quitting. Okay, but be honest about it. Be honest about, you know, I put this breast collar on because I'm fat and I can't get on my horse. Okay, fine. But yeah, that's my idea on breast collars, and they shouldn't be tight. They should not even be snug. They should be pretty loose fitting, because it's not there to hold your saddle on. Okay, cinches are too long. Now we've been asked to do the cinch fitting thing a lot, and I've got to do it with a horse so I can actually show everybody. I will do that. I will do the cinch fitting video one of these days. But most people have too long of cinches. As some of you I'm sure have figured out, the director and producer and head shovel carrier around here, she makes cinches. And people will call, you know, order a 36-inch cinch, and she'll go, how big is your horse? Oh, it's 14.2. He probably doesn't need a 36-inch cinch, and then she'll tell him how to measure and this and that, and you know, turns out he needs a 28-inch cinch. And then most people can't even stand that, so she ends up making him a 30. Because they think, oh yeah, 28 is way too small. But anyway, if your cinch is too long, what you're doing is you're cinching to the body of the horse rather than to the horse's girth. You know, I call them a cinch. A lot of people call them a girth. The reason it's called a girth is because that's the part of the horse you're cinching to, not to their whole body, not to their barrel, not to their rib cage. So you're going to have a lot of problems when your cinch is too long. One, your saddle is going to slide around because it's not cinched properly. It's going to want to roll around. That is going to make them sore, for one, but also your saddle's going to roll around. So you're going to tighten it even more. You're going to tighten it more than you need to. That's also going to make your horse really sore. And he can't move properly, and on and on and on, and it just goes on and on and on, and then that's where you get these, you know, 14-year-old kid's horse that, and then for no reason at all, he just started bucking me off, or I don't know why. He never did before, but now he tries to bite me when I catch him. I've got 3 horses tied in the shade right over just now that they've got some ticks in their ears. The last 3 days in a row, I ignored the fact that they had ticks in their ears and rode them anyway. And today I couldn't catch any of the 3 of them. Well, duh. I mean, I knew it was coming. I just did it anyway. But that's the same with these cinches. You get these horses sore, and the, you know, then they turn into outlaws. But having a cinch, I would be more comfortable having a cinch that was way too short than having one that was too long. I've said this many, many times. I ride a 28-inch cinch. I ride a 28 on pretty much everything, from a 2-year-old to a thoroughbred. That's 28's what I go with, and it fits just about everything. I've got a couple of other sizes that I've used once in a while, but last winter, 2 winters ago, I started a futurity horse that was tiny, 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 and my 28 was too big for him. So I had the boss make me what's that, maybe a 16? It's a 22? No, it's shorter than that. I don't know, it's little. And anyway, I used it on him, hadn't used it since. Here a little while ago, I had to use it on something, and then went and put that saddle on something else, and I was in a hurry, and rather than switching out cinches, I just went, it'll work. This is going to be quick anyway. Too short a cinch is going to cause you way less problems than too long a cinch. So figure that out. While we're talking about cinches, we've talked about it, but neoprene, any of that other junk is just junk. Just throw it out the window. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. I mean, anybody that likes Cummins motors will agree with me on that. Go 12 valve. So yeah, just because it's the newest, coolest thing doesn't make it any better. That goes with roller buckles and all that malarkey. I've heard a few feedlot guys say, well, I agree with you, but the only reason I use a neoprene cinch is because it gets so muddy and I can just hose it down. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys that one because I've never worked in a feedlot, but I've got my hair cinches really, really muddy and they just hose down too, and it doesn't hurt anything. So I'm not sure if I'm really gonna buy it. I also heard somebody say, oh, I love mohair, but my horse is allergic to it. What? My horse is allergic to it, so I have to use a nylon cinch with sheep's wool stitched onto it. You're telling me your horse is allergic to goat hair, but not sheep hair? That really doesn't make any sense to me. And none of them are allergic to horsehair. So get a horsehair cinch. Or an alpaca cinch. Or what are those muskox? But anyway, and my whole reasoning behind that is because a nylon billet with sheepskin stretched to it, so yeah, maybe your horse is allergic. But that nylon doesn't have any give in it, and you're just going to have your horse's sternum out, and then his shoulders are going to go out, and then his back's going to go out, and then he's going to buck you off. But every chiropractor I know loves neoprene cinches, tells everybody to get them because it makes them money. Okay, and the last one we're going to do is white spots. White spots on their back. So white spot on their back is from continuous pressure from the saddle in a single spot on their back. And what it does is it basically kills the cells. It just destroys the cell tissue there. And so the hair comes back white. And all my life I was told that it never, ever, ever heals. Well, I've actually seen it heal. It will heal. It'll grow, it'll come back eventually. But if you've got a white, yeah, and that one was only like that big. If you get one that's this big and solid, yeah, the one I saw come back was about that big and round. If they're this big and solid, yeah, it's gonna, there's what you have there is atrophy, cellular atrophy. They're probably going to have it for their whole life. You know, and that just means they were in an ill-fitting saddle for too many hours. I used to have a saddle. This is kind of a funny story. So at one time I was trading a lot of horses, and there's a lot of people in the world that will say, well, he can't be very broke, he doesn't even have a white mark on his back. And I've got really good saddles and I'm really paying attention to horses' backs. And so I found this nasty old saddle in a pawn shop or something like that, and I could tell it was wonky. And you could actually just put that saddle on a horse and go tie them out in the sun for a day, and they'd have a white spot on their back. And then I could trade them to these yahoos that go, oh, he must be broke, he's got a white spot on his back. That's neither here nor there. So yeah, it just means your saddle doesn't fit. So that's the end of my rambling. The executive producer just explained to me why my last ending was not any good. So anonymous person that sent me these questions and emails and stuff like that, I hope that answers some of your questions. I hope that helps you in some way whatsoever, and I hope somebody else gets something out of it too. Thanks. So much to the Patreon crew. You guys are the reason we're able to do this and do the extra things and really do all the YouTube videos too. We wouldn't be able to make it work without you guys. So thank you so much. And any of the rest of you, you can jump on and watch any of these extra kind of things that we do on Patreon and see what's going on there. So check that out if you can.